Southsiders Studios is now on Stitcher. Listen to us on your iPhone, Android phone, BlackBerry, and WebOS phones. Stitcher is smart radio for your smartphone. Find it in an app store or at Stitcher.com. Stitcher Smart Radio, the smarter way to listen to radio.
Hi, this is Kyle from Full Body Cast, and you're listening to the Southsiders Studios podcasting system. For more great podcast programming, visit SouthsidersStudios.com or search Southsiders Studios on iTunes.
Cinesmack contains spoilers of the spoiling type. If you don't want your spoilers spoiled, please turn back now. Otherwise, enjoy the show!
Hello, Cinesmacketeers, and welcome back to Cinesmack, the podcast that answers which one of your favorite movies could beat up the other favorite movie. Yeah, sure, that'll work. I am your host, Mike Keeler, and joining me as usual is shooter extraordinaire and owner of Cheshire Moon Films, Tom Haggis.
Hey, people of the future, what's going on?
The fabulous producer and owner of 515 Productions, Sam Twomey.
Hello, Cinesmackers.
The guy that we met on the street and said that he would be willing to do the podcast, and owner of One Genome Short, Gabriel Rowald.
Good evening, time travelers.
And joining us, our special guest, is owner of Modern American Cinema, Mr. Kristian Day.
Howdy.
Thanks for being on, Kristian.
Well, thank you.
So tonight I'm a little nervous because I love both these movies, but I know who I want to win just by a little bit. So let's poke the monkey and get this going.
Ladies and gentlemen, mobsters and revolutionaries, welcome to the main event! In the first corner, released in 1995, directed by Terry Gilliam, starring Bruce Willis, Madeline Stowe, and Brad Pitt, 12 Monkeys. In the second corner, released in 2012, directed by Ryan Johnson, starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Bruce Willis, and Emily Blunt, Looper! Tonight, we have a temporal throwdown that threatens to tear apart time and space! Holy
Tom, why don't you start us off?
I think when I think about these two movies, the first thing I think about is the acting, but then eventually I get down to the writing of it. And 12 Monkeys attributes at the beginning of the movie based on the movie La Jetée from 1963, I think. And in watching these, I went back and I watched that one again. And, I think it's like looking on it, I really think it's really more inspired by just kind of the concept. I don't think there's a whole lot of La Jetée in 12 Monkeys. I mean, they took it and expanded it so far that I would have to say that 12 Monkeys really kind of become its own film, and that's why I kind of would rather say it inspired by. Mm-hmm. Looper, on the other hand, does such a great job handling a lot of the heavy problems that bother time travel movies, the physics of it, and the dichotomies and the paradigms that come up when people travel back and forth and everything else. And Bruce Willis is able to brush all of that stuff away with two lines in that diner. And it was such a really smart move by Ryan Johnson to just, smack the nerds in the audience and say, God damn it, this is not, don't start taking this apart. Don't think too much into the little intricate details of this or you're going to ruin this movie. And I thought it was such a great move. And just for that alone, I'm going to give it to Looper for screenplay just because it's such an entertaining it's such an entertaining ride, and it does such a really great job of just laying the story out. And I've watched it 3 times already, and every time it gets better and better and better. And the same thing happened with 12 Monkeys. The first time I watched it, I was like, oh, this was pretty good. And I've watched 12 Monkeys so many times. I mean, it is nearly flawless in my mind. But for the screenplay, I'd give it to Looper, just because of the way they were able to just hit that stuff head on and move on and continue on with the story and not get bogged down with that stuff.
All right. Thank you, Tom. Sam.
Interesting. There was some things about both films. Like when I first saw 12 Monkeys, I think I felt the same way I did about Looper. Although the first time is very special with 12 Monkeys. All the pieces haven't been put together yet. So the very first, and the same can be said in some ways about Looper, but to me it was more of a ride. But when I think into the actual story parts itself, not necessarily how they're edited, how they were shot, how they were cast, I would have to agree with Tom that Looper paints this very unique, fun story. It's not so far-fetched in the future. A lot of times in these kind of science fiction movies, the future is highly stylized and described as kind of this utopia, either that or this ultra grungy place. I feel that the world and the characters that kind of set in Looper had a little bit more hook to it. I thought it was in some ways a little more predictable than 12 Monkeys was. I kind of saw some of those plot elements coming, but I didn't mind that as I was watching it. It was just kind of reveling in the story as it was unfolding in front of me. So I think for screenplay, I'm going to have to give my vote to Looper as well.
Well, all right. Thank you, Sam. Gabe.
Yeah, these are 2 of my favorite movies, and I think this is going to be a pretty close bout. And it's hard to pick favorites between the 2 because they're both so good in their own ways. When it comes to the screenplay, I think I'm pretty much on board with everybody else. The screenplay is very strong for 12 Monkeys. I really think they did a great job of taking the seed that La Jetée set up and planted, and they expanded upon it immensely. La Jetée is a movie I had seen in college, and I just loved it. I loved the concept of it. I loved the simplicity of the execution. I loved the complexity of the idea, and I just loved the humanness of the story. And so I was a little bit concerned when I saw that they were making a full length movie based on that. But none better than Terry Gilliam and his compatriots Bruce Willis, Brad Pitt, Madeline Stowe, all of those coming together, making a great movie. And I think they did a great job of taking that seed and really making it grow. However, when I watched Looper, I was just kind of, pun kind of intended, I was blown away. It was an original take on the concept of time travel, and it was a very interesting approach to the idea of time travel and the paradoxes that it creates. And I really enjoyed it from beginning to end. And our former guest Tosh had said that it was the first movie that he had seen in a long time that he couldn't predict the ending. He predicts the ending of everything. It doesn't matter what it is. He knows what's coming. He can see it a mile out. And he said he couldn't predict the ending of it. And so for that, I give it a few points too, because if you can fool Tosh, you've done a pretty good job of keeping the story interesting and compelling. So I think, as hard as this is, I think I'm with Tom and Sam on this one. Sure, there's not a lot of smack talk going on here, but it's hard to disagree with those guys that Looper has a great screenplay.
All right. Thanks, Gabe. Welcome to Cinema Agree. And Kristian Day, you are next, sir.
All right. I actually was kind of siding with those guys, but because there really hasn't been a whole lot of smack, I'm going to go the other direction because, overall, I think I really enjoyed Looper as a whole, but we're not there yet. But 12 Monkeys seemed a little more the story itself, what happened, seems a little more compelling and believable to me, with the events that, what he is trying to prevent from happening. And I loved Looper's modern take of time travel. I thought that was fantastic, and their idea of the future they didn't go all the way out there. It seemed like, okay, we might have a hovering motorcycle. Okay, that's about as future as we're really going to get. But the events that took place in 12 Monkeys and how they put that together, I could actually foresee that happening, like an actual event versus Looper. I'm not 100% buying it. It's a great action flick. I love it. I have a great time watching it, but I don't really buy into it too much. And Legit, I actually didn't pick up on that until I watched it today. And I remember watching Legit being the elitist Criterion fan that I am, I've been for many years. It's a great piece, and I didn't even connect the two, because I always thought Legit was very frightening because of the fact that it was stills and what they could do with it, and the fact that they were able to expand on it with 12 Monkeys. And still create that type of frightening future. I really, really dug that. So yeah, I'm gonna break this and say I'm gonna give it to 12 Monkeys.
All right, thank you, Kristian. Terry Gilliam was impressed by the film's screenplay because it touched on some of the themes he had covered in the previous film, Brazil. Have any of you guys seen Brazil?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, film.
Yep.
He was shocked to find out that Universal was interested in making the film, partly because it was kind of movie that he didn't think major studios would support, and partly because he and Universal had clashed violently over Brazil a decade earlier. When he learned then Universal chief Casey Silver was a strong backer of the new project and that none of the figures who he had clashed with over Brazil were going to block him or torpedo it, he signed up to direct it. And Emily Blunt revealed that she agreed to star in Looper after reading half of the script. She didn't even know what her character was. She had no idea. She wanted to do it that bad. So, yeah, let's move on to acting. Sam, you lead us off.
I'm starting.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay. That's acting.
Acting. Thank you.
Wow. Acting. There were some very great choices and some, some great acting work in both of these films. It was interesting to watch Bruce Willis at a later date and how much of his charisma is still there. And although his role in Looper is a lot more muted, he's not the star focus. I mean, he's a big part of it, but he's not the main focus of the audience. It's Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character. But there's such a power that he brings to his performance, kind of that aged wisdom, the smarts of his character, and also the toughness, I think. What I like about Willis's performance in 12 Monkeys is that it kind of went to a lot of different places that we hadn't really seen before at that time. There was, we'd seen him in a lot of action. We had done some television and what have you. But some of the nuances of his character in 12 Monkeys, there was a portion of it that was funny but always determined. And also in those times when he was hazy from medications, you really got to feel that his thinking patterns and his delivery was staggered. And also when it comes to 12 Monkeys, acting like you're on drugs or crazy or whatnot, I really enjoyed Brad Pitt's performance, and I enjoyed seeing his ass very much. I didn't remember that you saw Bruce Willis's ass so much in 12 Monkeys. Not that it did much for me, but just, while we're on the subject, I guess. Looper, you can tell that it's a product that has come about recently. It's built on the traditions and a lot of cinematic achievements that have happened between the time that 12 Monkeys was released and when Looper was released. And I think there are some very strong performances in Looper, but I really think I'm going to have to give the acting category to 12 Monkeys on this round.
Thank you, Sam. Gabe?
Yeah, the acting in both of these is really strong, and I've enjoyed. I enjoyed it in both movies very much. It's interesting that Bruce is in both of these. I'm not sure that's why we picked them. Did we pick them because they both have Bruce in it, or did we pick them because they're both kind of time travel?
Kind of time travel. Plus, we had Bruce Willis in both of them.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
It's bonus. A double feature.
That's right.
Yeah. But interestingly to me, I like Bruce Willis. I always have, and I've always thought he was very engaging and is actually a pretty talented actor. But interestingly to me, he is not my favorite part of either of these two movies. Brad Pitt is far and away my favorite part of 12 Monkeys. I think his performance is really entertaining and fun and very different for him. If you watch a lot of actors, their work seems to be many actors, their work is kind of the same over time, because it's them, it's that person. They are that person and even though they're playing a different character, it's still, Brad Pitt or Bruce Willis or whoever. Mm-hmm. But I felt like this was a departure for Brad Pitt and an early departure for him. And I enjoyed it very much. I thought his performance was great, and I liked the things they did. I don't know if this falls under acting, but maybe it helps him be that character. I like what they did with the contact that made him look like he had a little bit of a goofy eye, and I liked his mannerisms. He was really believable as kind of smart but a little off kilter. Mm-hmm. And for Looper, again, I don't think Bruce Willis was my favorite part. I enjoyed his character, and I thought it was a kind of this. He had this subtle, caring toughness about him, if that makes any sense, which was different for him. But I really like Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I think he's excellent. He's totally a star in the making, and I thought his performance was really excellent in Looper. So I really think it's in a certain way. If you think of Bruce Willis as the main actor, I think it's the surrounding cast that actually kind of upstages him a little bit in these two movies. It's hard. This one's hard to pick, but I think based on the strength of Brad Pitt's performance and overall good performances throughout 12 Monkeys, I also have to give my vote to 12 Monkeys.
All right, thank you, Gabe. Kristian.
This one's. I'm kind of fighting with this one for a little bit here. I absolutely did not like Bruce Willis in Looper. I was actually kind of bored with his character. I thought he was way more exciting to watch in 12 Monkeys. But saying that, going back to Looper, we were talking about these side characters. Although his appearance was brief, was is it Paul Dano, the Seth character who ends up getting killed at the beginning, and old Seth. I really enjoyed this very brief but very awesome death that this character had and how they did it. When old Seth is climbing over the fence and the markings, for you start to see the markings, and then his death when he realizes what's going on and he's losing limbs as he's crawling. I absolutely loved that performance, and it was very minimal. It was very minimal, but I loved it, and that is what stuck with me since I watched it. But because it's so brief, I really can't give the points to Looper because it is brief. Although that very briefness is probably the best thing I saw between the two films for me personally. But that's not enough. I have to go with Brad Pitt and Bruce Willis in 12 Monkeys. Both of them were definitely running around like maniacs. They were very fun to watch. Watching Bruce Willis being just almost as much of a maniac but in a different way as Brad Pitt. I mean, really, Brad Pitt in that reminded me a little bit of a very mild Joker from Dark Knight. Very mild Joker. Because he was just so out of it, to the point where he doesn't even realize how crazy he is. That's just who he is. And I thought that was fantastic. So, the fact that they were on screen, majority of the film, I got to give it to him. And with all honesty, I think we all can probably agree on this. We keep talking about Brad Pitt, was when Brad Pitt first shows up in 12 Monkeys in the hospital. The earliest form of Brad Pitt is where the movie really opens up. Because with all honesty, I could give a damn until they end up in the hospital, and here's Artard Brad Pitt walking around, throwing people off of chairs, and just really getting into it. So, yeah, I got to give it to 12 Monkeys.
All right. Thank you, Kristian. Tom.
Everybody said everything. I hate going last.
Don't be an Artard.
You know what? No. Everybody hasn't said everything yet. So I want to talk first about Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and a little bit later, I think in the directing category, I'll talk a little bit more about makeup. But there are times when I'm watching Looper, and I know that it was a mix of prosthetics and makeup and special effects that they did in post, but there are some things that are actually Joseph Gordon-Levitt is doing that. What's really, really great about it is that Joseph Gordon-Levitt has the benefit of 30 years of Bruce Willis films that we've all absorbed, and we know Bruce Willis's little looks and mimicry and all that other great stuff that he does. And Joseph Gordon-Levitt has that in his toolbox, and it's so awesome the way that he uses it. And I sit there and I think probably about 15 times during the movie, I have to shake it off and be like, that's not Bruce Willis I'm looking at. But I'm like, God dang, it sure does look like him, though. And, it's certainly his mannerisms, and it's was handled so well. And I remember when the trailer came out, and everybody's like, what the hell is wrong with Joseph Gordon-Levitt's face? It doesn't even look like him. And it all came together. And the first time that happens in the movie, and I don't remember the exact part where it was, but when you're sitting in the theater and it happened that first time, and you're like, oh my God, it is Bruce Willis. On the other hand, I'm going to kind of disagree with Kristian on this, that I thought the supporting cast in Looper was a little bit wasted. I thought Paul Dano, he was so awesome in There Will Be Blood, and he's put in some really, really great performances. And I don't know, it kind of felt bad that this really, really great actor kind of got designated this smaller role, and I thought that, they could have used him a little bit better. I mean, I don't want a bigger part for Seth, but it seemed like a waste. And then same with Jeff Daniels. I thought the mob boss character, I don't know, he seemed so subdued and just kind of let the movie happen. And I know that was his character, but on the other hand, I thought 12 Monkeys, what can you say about Brad Pitt that hasn't been said already? You guys did it all. I mean, the guy was nominated for an actor for it. And this was the movie where, all of the teen magazines and the girls were, oh, Brad Pitt, and everybody, the guys were kind of like, fucking Brad Pitt. Seriously, get the hell out of here. And then we all went and saw 12 Monkeys and went, oh my God, he's so fucking good. He is so good in this movie. And I'm waiting for one of the assholes from Twilight to do something like this, but, hey, Twilight assholes, this is what you need to be working on. But then, and somebody else that hasn't been mentioned yet, Christopher Plummer, who, the captain from Sound of Music is so great in 12 Monkeys. One of my favorite lines in all moviedom is when he says women psychiatrists, when he hangs up the phone with Rayleigh in his lab. And I love how just angry and frustrated and everything he is. He drives into those two words, and I just love it when he says women psychiatrists. So I'm going to give my acting award to 12 Monkeys on the back of Brad Pitt, if you can believe it.
All right. Thank you, Tom. You guys have pointed out all really great stuff, but I have, for my money, the acting in Looper of one person just sold the movie for me, and that was little Pierce Gagnon, the little kid, Sid. I don't know how he did not get nominated for some kind of acting award, because quite frankly, that kid made that movie for me. I thought he was fantastic. What?
Mike, I got 4 kids under the age of 6, man. I see that shit every day in the course of 1 hour.
I know, but he was so good. Like,
it's not that hard, man. You just take away one of their toys, and they'll make the house explode.
Oh, I thought it was.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that, Mike. When the way they did the high speed shooting when he was having his tantrums was pretty incredible.
Yeah, he just blew me away with, I mean, sure, yeah, Tom, you're used to it. You've got kids, but I mean, to be able to get them to do that on camera, and I don't know, they always say stay away from kids and animals when you're shooting a film. And I don't know, I was very impressed by how well that young man did. I guess he's not even a young man, he's still a boy, but it really sold it for me. And I mean, Emily Blunt was great. She was a strong woman character, but not like over the top. She was just a strong woman, and for me, I really like that. But yeah, I agree totally about Brad Pitt in 12 Monkeys. So there you go. That was just my 2 cents. I'll shut up now. Terry Gilliam gave Bruce Willis a list of Willis acting cliches not to be used during the film, including the steely blue eyes look. And after reading that and watching the movie again, you notice how Bruce Willis doesn't, in most of his mannerisms stuff, he's always very direct, like always looking people in the eye. And in 12 Monkeys, he does a lot of looking down. I don't know if anyone else caught on to that, but it just seemed like he was constantly like looking down at the ground. And I thought that really helped sell that character. And in Looper, the scene where young Joe falls off the fire escape, it was filmed on Joseph Gordon-Levitt's 30th birthday, and he was left hanging on the stunt wires while the crew sang Happy Birthday and wheeled out a birthday cake. So I found that pretty funny.
Bastards.
Let's go ahead and move on to directing. Gabe. Thanks, Gabe.
Yeah, again, this is interesting. I honestly never heard of Rian Johnson before, and I should probably be a little bit ashamed of that. And I'm definitely going to look into more of his stuff. Mm-hmm. I really thought that Looper was very creative and very well done. When we first set out to compare these movies, and maybe this should go into the overall, but my first thought was, well, this will be an interesting comparison in scale. Because my initial impression was that 12 Monkeys was going to be a much grander film when it comes to things like budget and box office and those kinds of things. But if you look at it, it's really amazing how very similar they are. They're almost identical in budget and box office gross. It's really kind of interesting. And they're very similar across the board. Similar concepts, similar actors. But I think the real difference between the two is the directing. I think Looper is very well directed. It's very confidently directed. But in my personal estimation, Terry Gilliam is a genius. He's been he's been doing outstanding work even from the early days with Monty Python. Mm-hmm. I really don't know how you wouldn't include Terry Gilliam in a list of greatest directors ever. I really love a lot of his films. I think he does amazing work, and there's just brilliance in every moment of 12 Monkeys. The cinematography is gorgeous. The shot selection is beautiful. Editing is great. I never feel like I don't remember ever feeling like there was a slow moment in 12 Monkeys. I enjoyed all of it. I was always intrigued from beginning to end. What's happening, and I even knew going in that it was based on La Jetée, I knew what the beginning and end were going to be. but I still was engaged the whole way through. So I really don't know how I could vote against Terry Gilliam. I really think he's a brilliant director, a genius, a troubled genius, a money-spending genius, but a genius nonetheless. And so my vote has to go to 12 Monkeys.
All right. Kristian.
I have to agree. There's in my mind, the only thing that tends to pull me away is the fact that you brought up the kid. Because directing kids is one of the hardest things to do. But I think as an overall deal, there's a way more going on, and I find that 12 Monkeys had been much more of a challenge for Terry to put together versus the other film. I mean, I love Looper, and I think overall it was very fun. But I feel a lot of it's pretty subdued, minus the child, which is kind of a trend in films. Is like everyone's kind of chilled out all the time, except for the kid when he has his massive freakouts. And I do applaud for directing that child to do what he did. But as an overall piece, I'm gonna go with Terry for this, because I feel that based on like the time frame when he did it, technology has changed. Looper's a much newer film. You're able to do a few more things to make things look a lot slicker, but all the different nuances that you saw in 12 Monkeys, being the actual army of the 12 Monkeys to the post-apocalyptic or the apocalyptic guy, and when the scene at the very beginning when they tell him he's going to have his pardon, and you see that I guess would be like the judges. I forget what those people actually were, but they were really rad looking, and it reminded me of the kind of, I don't know what I want to call it. I'm just going to use the word puppetry for no reason. Of what was I just had a complete brain fart. Hold on, give me half a second so I can look it up. I don't know why I'm doing this. Why I could not think of Monty Python. I was connecting the word puppetry. I'm like, puppetry, Monty Python. There it is. It's there. I can totally see it. And so I'm going to go with Terry on this one. I know that was a jumbled mess, but it's because of that jumbled mess that I have to say I love 12 Monkeys direction over Looper.
Right on. All right. Tom.
Yeah, I'm pretty much going to agree with you guys on this one too. The no smack coming, just stuff like lens choices and camera placement is a lot more apparent in 12 Monkeys than it is in Looper. And Looper is it's a really, really great movie, and I hate voting against either one of these, especially in the directing category, because I love them so much. But it seems like the direction in Looper is a lot more straightforward, and maybe with more viewings, I'll become to appreciate it even more. But 12 Monkeys, Terry Gilliam's had a really kind of up and down career. From movies that he started that never got made to total disasters to some of the best movies that we have to enjoy. And this is, for me, this has got to be probably in the top one or two movies that he's ever done. And I like Monty Python, but I think that he's capable of so much more and having such a great script to work with. And I really think at the heart of both of these is a really, really great script. But Terry Gilliam is able to push it a little bit more. And he was a more seasoned director when he did 12 Monkeys than Rian Johnson, who's done, three or four movies. Perhaps when Rian Johnson is where Terry Gilliam is, then, we should be expecting some really, really great things coming from him. We're seeing that, with his work on Breaking Bad. He directed 3 of the best episodes of the entire series. So, but I'm going to give it to Terry Gilliam because, 12 Monkey is, as I said before, it's practically flawless, and a lot of that goes to the directing.
All right. Sam.
Well, I think all the guys have made fantastic points. In the instance of Looper, I think the director very effectively used a lot of the tools that he had at his disposal, and a very nice sized budget. the visual effects really complemented the film. They didn't take away from it at all or upstage it. They actually helped to kind of create this futuristic version or vision that the director had. But, like most of the other guys had said, I think in 12 Monkeys there's more layering there. There's nuances and all different departments within the film operation, from costuming to, I know we're going to talk about makeup, I think probably in overall, but the way that they're all very effectively used in 12 Monkeys, in some ways they're hidden, but they're so prevalent and they're so there. And I think as a director, he was able to bring lots of very talented artists together to create a very unique vision of the future, and then also shoot that vision of the future in a way that was very dynamic and also awarded him a lot of different options for how he was going to cut the film. So I, too, am going to have to go for directing for 12 Monkeys. Terry Gilliam.
All right. In excuse me. The script originally called for Joe in Looper to move to Paris when he got older, hence why he tries to learn French. However, Rian Johnson realized they didn't have the money to shoot in Paris. The story was changed, so that he goes to Shanghai because the Chinese distributor for the film offered to pay for the crew to film there. Johnson accepted because his best alternative to set the scene in Paris was to shoot them in New Orleans, which he didn't want to do, and because he felt Shanghai better reflected the future setting of the movie. And director Terry Gilliam and producer Charles Roven had several arguments about how the film should end. Gilliam wanted to finish on the shot of Rayleigh looking at young Cole, while Roven preferred the scripted final scene in the parking lot outside the airport. In an attempt to dissuade Roven, Gilliam proposed an immensely complex setup involving two cranes on top of one another and a vast sea of cars, in the hope that Roven would veto it as being too expensive. Roven not only okayed the shot, but Gilliam loved the result that he used it to end the film. So there you go. I don't, a crane on top of another crane, like, that's just crazy.
Yeah. Even for you, Mike.
Yeah, that's
crane
just
on
crazy.
crane action? That's film hot.
Crane on crane action. 12 Monkeys. There you go. Should win just on that. Let's move on to the last category, which is overall. And Kristian.
I came on here wanting to give this to Looper. In fact, but throughout our conversations, I feel that I have changed my mind. And for those various reasons that we all just kind of talked about, one thing I want to point out, what you just said, I loved that idea of Shanghai and China, especially in today's world. The future that is in Looper, I thought that's I can believe this. Mm-hmm. I can believe this all working. I didn't necessarily believe the Mad Max type future of 12 Monkeys, but the disaster that was in 12 Monkeys I believed, and the story I believed. I have to give this to 12 Monkeys, and I didn't want to. I actually kind of wanted to come in here and I wanted to talk trash about 12 Monkeys because for some reason it irritated me for many, many years until I watched it basically I watched them back to back. I watched 12 Monkeys and then I watched Looper. And Looper's a very slick film. It's very, very slick. But that doesn't necessarily make a good movie. It could be very slick, and it still is a decent film. But putting it up against something like 12 Monkeys that has so many layers that makes it good and rich, and there's things that you see later on, and I can say this right now. There's things that I didn't see the first few times I watched it, and preparing myself for this and rewatching and really paying attention. There's more there than the average audience viewer is going to see. But there's still enough there for the average audience viewer to enjoy it and have a good time. So I'm going to give this to 12 Monkeys for just being a solid piece of film work. I mean, fun all around, and you're never bored. And when it comes down to everything, is as an audience member, are you entertained? And
Right.
at every point of that movie, I was entertained.
All right. Thank you, Kristian. Tom.
Hey, it just occurred to me. In Looper, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, he gets shot in the leg, doesn't he? No. All right, never mind. You just edit that part out. I don't even know why I said that. That was so stupid. I thought Joseph Gordon-Levitt got shot in the leg, and then I was wondering, did he get shot in the same leg that Bruce Willis gets shot in World War I in 12 Monkeys? But that would have been really cool, but...
Oh, yeah.
Pointless and stupid as usual, Tom. Nice job. So let's talk about music, right? Paul Buckmaster's score from 12 Monkeys, I think... if you get away from John Williams and Danny Elfman, the guys that write the real iconic scores that are out there, the 12 Monkeys score has got to be one of the most recognizable scores out there in the last 20 years, and I absolutely love it. I think it's fantastic, and I think it's a little bit over the top, and it's very Terry Gilliam, and it fits really nicely. And Paul Buckmaster's not somebody that's done a lot of really great scores. I think he did like Most Wanted and a bunch of lower quality movies, if you want to put it that way. But the 12 Monkey score is so great, and it's fantastic. It's interesting that we're doing this right now in March because the Oscars just got over, and a lot of people, when you are in a movie podcast, people ask you, what was your favorite movie of the year, or which one do you think is going to win? And I'll be honest with you, partly because I haven't seen all the Best Picture nominees, but Looper, it was my favorite movie of last year. I absolutely loved it, and I did. I thought so far from what I've seen, I thought that it was the best movie of 2012. I'm absolutely furious that it didn't get nominated for screenplay or makeup. I thought that was, or special effects. I thought those were 3 huge snubs, and I'm a huge Looper fan. So, Looper fans, do not take offense about what I'm about to say and who's going to get my last point. One thing I didn't get to talk about either real quick, I skipped over it because my notes are all screwed up, but in the writing, 12 Monkeys also has one of my favorite final lines of any movie. I thought it was just perfect and subtle and short, and it's one of those lines that I point to when people are talk about good screenwriting, and it's like less is more, and it doesn't linger too much. You know what? And I don't really know how I feel about the whole parking lot shot at the end, because I wanted that last line that I'm in insurance, and I want the movie to end as quickly as possible when that comes on. So the shot in the parking lot is one thing, but I love that line so much that I like, oh, don't screw it up, just go to credits is what I'm screaming when I'm watching that. So anyway, I'm going to give it to 12 Monkeys. I think, 15, 20 years from now, I may feel differently after I've seen Looper, another 20, 30 times. But right now, 12 Monkeys it's so good. It's, it's like the, what do you call those? Rolos. I love Rolos, and it's like the Rolos of movies. It's just, I'm satisfied every time I encounter it.
All right. Thanks, Tom.
Rolos was a bad one too, right? Everybody hates Rolos, right? They're like milk duds. They're fucking nasty, aren't they? Damn it.
Rolos are delicious. They're much better than Milk Duds.
12 Monkeys is like the Reese's Peanut Butter Cups of movies.
Oh, now see, I can get behind that.
Who hates Reese's?
Everyone loves Reese's. Everyone loves Reese's. See, okay. Reese's Peanut Butter Cup, Reese's Monkeys, 12 Monkeys. I did it. Thank you very much.
Wow.
Full circle.
Sam.
Genius.
Tom's gone bye-bye, Sam. So it's your turn. Your turn, Sam.
Whose turn? My turn?
Yeah.
Me?
Yeah.
I'll go again. I just finished my Red Bull, so I can go again.
Okay. I'll go. Wow. Everyone's always talking about the makeup in Looper, and I did not like the makeup. I get what they were trying to do. I thought his mannerisms and things were enough to not be so over the top, because I got used to looking at him a certain way. To me, that got in the way. That wasn't a huge plus in my book. I think his performance said more about him, the believability of him being that character in the future than anything. So the makeup in Looper is lost on me. What's not lost is the effects, the acting of the kid. I thought, like Mike had brought up earlier and elaborated on that. I thought that was great. I loved the way the future was. A lot of times people, again, I said this earlier, will exaggerate these alternative futures, but the way it was in Looper, it didn't look, that far from where we are now, or that it was a logical extension of a possible future. Mm-hmm. Now, having said that, a lot of times in the overall, I'm going to come down to rewatchability. 12 Monkeys has that in spades. I enjoyed Looper, and I'll probably watch it, maybe another time in a few years, but anytime 12 Monkeys comes on, I'll watch it. There's so many parts of that movie that are enjoyable to me. The score, as Tom brought up, is wonderful. Even last night after I watched it with my fiance, like there'd be times before I went to bed where I was like da 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 da, just cracking myself up every time, and it's just fun. It's 12 Monkeys is a fun, wild ride. There's adventure, there's a great story, but there's also a lot of humor. And as Tom pointed out, that last line about being in insurance, it makes you feel so good because it's a funny line. It's a great way to tie up a lot of the loose ends of the story, and it's just another reason why I think that 12 Monkeys overall, in the overall category, is just a better picture. And so my vote is going to go for 12 Monkeys.
All right. Gabe, you're last.
Well, I think the voting this time around is actually not going to be indicative of the quality of both of these movies. I haven't been keeping official count, but it sounds like 12 Monkeys is really kind of running away with it at this point. But I don't know that that's really truly fair, because both of these movies are really great movies. They approach the topic of time travel with interest and excitement and enjoyment. And so I'm not sure that the end voting is going to really reflect how close these movies really are. But yeah, I think Sam touched on the makeup thing. And I have to admit, the makeup to me was a little bit distracting. And I thought maybe a little bit unnecessary. Because in my personal opinion, I didn't feel like the makeup made Joseph Gordon-Levitt in Looper look more like Bruce Willis. Mm-hmm. And I do remember seeing the previews, and I think maybe Tom mentioned it before, like, what the hell? Who is that? It looks like Joseph Gordon-Levitt, but I'm not quite sure, because he looks kind of weird. What did they do to his face? And it didn't look very natural, and I really didn't think it did much to make him look like Bruce Willis. I thought, like everyone has mentioned before, that his mannerisms, his acting made him seem more like Bruce Willis than the makeup did. And I honestly found it distracting. It took me out of the movie. As the movie progressed, I kind of got over it and kind of ignored it and got into the story and into the action and enjoyed it more. But yeah, and then I also felt like there was a mention of the special effects. Some of the special effects in Looper were really very cool. The whole thing that we mentioned before about the words getting carved into their arm and appearing on the older doppelganger, and then losing the limbs, and some of that stuff was pretty cool. And I couldn't decide about the whole time travel thing, because it was decidedly low-fi, mm-hmm. because they just kind of show up. It's like the earliest in-camera special effects tricks that mm-hmm. ever existed. It's like, okay, we're rolling. Okay, stop the camera, put the actor in place, and roll again. They just showed up. There was nothing about that. And I couldn't decide if that was like conscious or if it was the kind of thing where it's like, we've got a really low budget, we're running out of money, we can't make this fancy. So I couldn't decide.
I'll answer that for you once you're done.
Okay. But either way, I don't know that it bothered me, but I decided that it was kind of like, that was really kind of underwhelming for time travel. But maybe that's how it would happen if it were to exist. I don't know. But when it comes to 12 Monkeys, again, the music, I don't know if I like the music.
What?
I don't know if I like it. I don't necessarily dislike it, but it's definitely memorable. It's unique. It stands out, and that to me makes it great. It's associated immediately with that movie and with that story and those characters, and there's no separating the two. And to me, that's great. And I don't know that there were a lot of special effects necessarily in 12 Monkeys, but I did like the kind of retro future that they created, and I've always kind of liked that. A future that doesn't look like the future. It almost kind of looks like a mix of the past and the future, and things aren't all perfect and new and shiny. Things are grungy and old, and I really like that whole kind of retro future idea. And he does that. Terry Gilliam does that in Brazil. Ridley Scott does that in Blade Runner. I love that. It's this grungy future. It's not something that we've never seen before. It's a mix of things we have seen and things we haven't yet seen together. And they're lived in, they're used, they're dirty, they're grungy, they're human. And I really like that part of it. And like I said before, it seems really lopsided from a voting perspective. Both of these movies are great, but I don't know how I don't give my vote to 12 Monkeys. I think 12 Monkeys is an exceptional film and an interesting look at the concept of time travel.
All right.
Hey, Gabe.
Yeah.
If you really want to appreciate the 12 Monkeys score, I think Sam actually has a nice 80-minute CD where he hums the theme from 12 Monkeys over and over again. And so you put that in, and I think you're really going to appreciate this.
Can I get a copy?
It's fantastic. It's on constant repeat at our house. So
no wonder your kids are blowing up their
themselves
house.
in this house already. So
Yeah, I know, Mike, you were going to talk about the kind of special effects regarding the time travel. I want to throw my own 2 cents into there, and I'm sure I am completely off on this. I kind of feel that because of the whole trend of style today is very minimal. You go back 10 years, it was the biggest explosion. You think of time travel, Back to the Future, and there's lightning flashing around, and I think maybe visually that's no longer the trend. And we expect, because technology has changed so much, that now we can do so much more.
Right.
That I mean, when the first person that showed up, that flashed onto the screen in Looper, I was a little like, wait, this is it?
Yeah.
I was expecting like the sky to open up and it's like Thor coming down, and no, it's just there he is.
Yeah.
But I bought it. I'm like, okay, I can handle this. This is fun. None of this. We're just gonna concentrate on what's happening here.
Right.
But yeah, I think it kind of falls back on minimalism, which is a trend. I mean, look at everything's digital. We don't have most of us don't listen to CDs. Most of it's all MP3, digital downloads. Money with things like Dwala, where you don't carry cash. Everything's becoming cleaner, and maybe that is just a stylistic thing and maybe we'll see that years from now. We'll look back and say, oh, that was just the style of nothing, which is what the trend was in the early 21st century. But that's just my 2 cents on that whole thing.
Well, what I think what we're seeing is a lot of filmmakers that have an appreciation for in the 80s and 90s. The filmmakers were trying to make movies that were going to dominate the weekend, that were going to be the biggest movie of the summer or the biggest movie that month that came out. But I think what we're seeing now is filmmakers that have a bigger appreciation for the long-term legacy of their films. And so these films that are like, man, this was the greatest film to come out in July 1995. I'm like, yeah, and it shows. And they know that. I think people like Rian Johnson know that the special effects that they're going to be capable of 10 years from now is going to make their movie look like crap. So let's just stay away from it, because Looper is going to be a fantastic film 20, 30, 40 years from now because they stayed away from all of those types of special effects. Right. You know, I'm sure people will chuckle and be like, haha, 2044, how cute. But in terms of the actual visual effects, I mean, what a great way to make your science fiction film timeless by getting rid of anything that is going to stand out as dated in terms of, you know, the filmmaking technology. So I think that's really exciting, and it makes me really excited to see what they do with the new Star Wars, because George Lucas absolutely had no concept of that whatsoever. But the people that seem to be working on these new ones, what are they going to do with it so that their films don't date so horribly? Because, I mean, Phantom Menace really looks quite awful.
Yeah, I have to agree with you.
Let's see what they do with the next one. So hopefully they have that appreciation too.
Yeah, well, also I think, you know, Rian Johnson, as a directorial choice with the time travel thing, it's one less obstacle to the acceptance of the story, I think, because like most of the other future that he creates, it's not that different from what our reality is today. So as an audience, you don't have to suspend your disbelief that much to know that, oh yeah, futures, you know, travel is possible. And also a lot of the locations that, while they're explaining some of this time travel stuff, are grounded in areas like today, like you know, an old factory, things that are you know, not so foreign to movie audiences. So it's easier to jump into the story and accept the premises of it. I kind of like that the time travel is basic, and that it's not, you know, fire and brimstone and, you know, electrical traces and, you know, digitization and beaming in and out, all that kind of bullshit. It's just it's pretty straightforward.
Right. Yeah, and I think maybe, you know, if you look at it, Looper's not really a movie about time travel itself, and time travel and, you know, how it would operate is not the central thesis of the film. It's more about those characters. And so, you know, perhaps it was a conscious choice, and we'll find out from Mike here in a moment. You know, in order not to distract from the story and the building of the characters. It's part of the story, but it's not the central part of the story. And so keep it simple.
Yeah. Well, all right. So first off, I don't talk about any other podcasts very much, but I happen to listen to them weekly, and that is Kevin Smith's Smodcast. He had Rian Johnson on as a guest, and they discussed for, I would probably say, an hour and a half, 2 hours, about Looper, about Brick, and about a few other things. And then they recorded 2 more hours over on Kevin Smith's podcast called Smovie Makers, where they talked in great length about Looper and about Bruce Willis. So if you guys go listen to that, make sure if you let Kevin Smith know, hey, great job, we heard about you through Cinesmack, that'd be great. But Rian Johnson worked on the script since like 2002, and he wanted something simple. Like they sold the rights, the foreign rights to the film before they sold the domestic rights. So that's where the whole Chinese, you know, shooting over in China came about. And it was a conscious choice, I can't even talk, thank you, about just having a very simple cut, you know, to where the time traveler is just in place. And to me, I bought that a lot more than like the lightning, like the fire and brimstone, which, you know, would be awesome because, I mean, you're talking to a Michael Bay fan. But I love the simplicity of that cut and just bam, they're there. And I mean, really, that's what it would be like in reality if time travel was possible, you know, or if we were doing it. And I also like the fact that it's a one-way trip. You know, you're back, you're done. I mean, there's no getting back to the future. There's no going other places. You're there, and that's it. And Rian goes through and explains how he sat down and he wrote out the core rules for his film and how time travel works. Like, he actually thought it through and made sure that the film, the script, didn't cross any of those. So there you go. I would just suggest listening to it because it's fantastic. And I love to listen to I think it was like, I want to say 3.5 to 4 hours worth of stuff. And it was great. So did that answer your question?
Yeah, well, definitely. It's good to know that it was a conscious choice.
Yeah, and I that really stood out to me. I was just like, oh, I like that. It's very simple. It gets the point across. Mm-hmm. So yeah, but all right. I am going to go ahead and get this tallied up so I can give it to the monkey and he can announce it. You guys want to move on to your recommendations for this month? We'll go back up to top, and we'll start with Tom.
Right. Last month, Nick had recommended Rian Johnson's movie Brick, and I wasn't a big fan of it. I didn't really care for it very much because I saw his second movie, and I really, really liked it. And it's called The Brothers Bloom. With Adrian Brody and Mark Ruffalo, and it's about two con men brothers, and it's a really cool movie about these two confidence men and how they're putting together these really complicated, convoluted plots, and it's a really fun, wild ride, and I really, really like it, and you can tell Rian Johnson's ability to build a very multi-tiered story. The way he does in Looper, the way he does he does it in Brothers Bloom the same way without the time travel element. It's gotten a little bit of flack because it's not as polished as Looper. It was a little bit lower budget than Looper was. So I don't think it was what you see on the screen is probably not Rian Johnson's absolute perfect vision, but it is a one heck of a ride. I absolutely love it. It's my second favorite Rian Johnson movie of the three that he's done. And again, the Breaking Bad episodes are good too if you check those out. But Brothers Bloom, it is not on Netflix, so you're going to have to go buy it, which is totally worth it.
All right. Sam.
Well, I want to, speaking of time travel, my pick this week is going to take you back in time, and that is for sure. My pick this week comes all the way back from 1987, and it's the movie Mannequin with Andrew McCarthy, Kim Cattrall, Estelle Getty, just to name a few. You also get GW.
Jesus.
This movie is a perfect example. It takes me back to the past. I watched it. I've watched it so many times. G.W. Bailey from the Police Academy movies is also in it. James Spader is hilarious as an uptight business executive. Or department store executive. It's just a lot of fun. It's not going to be anything too heavy, but there's some funny one-liners. The premises are funny, and it's one of those movies that you can just kind of enjoy watching unfold before you. Mannequin, 1987. Treat yourself to a laugh.
Nice, Sam. I love that. That's actually one of the first films that Amanda and I watched kind of together because she loved it and I loved it. And we're like, well, let's just go ahead and watch it. It was kind of like a second or third date type of deal, and we watched it. And I love Mannequin. So go ahead, Gabe. Thanks, Gabe.
Okay, well, I'm going to stick with time travel and Terry Gilliam. And I'm going to recommend a movie that we touched on briefly, I believe, in our last episode, and that's Time Bandits. It's a very interesting, very visually stunning, very moody kind of movie, and I remember it from my childhood. It's a movie that I enjoyed a lot when I was a kid. I honestly haven't seen it in a long time, and I think I might pull it out and watch it again here pretty soon. But it's an early example of Terry Gilliam's directing brilliance and an entertaining movie. So I would highly recommend it.
All right, thanks, Gabe. Kristian.
I have been on a Astron 6 kick. If any of you are familiar with Astron 6, I know Sam is because I loaned him half my collection. These are these Canadian filmmakers who there's actually 5 of them, even though they're called Astron 6. They have a new film out called Manborg that was shot for $1,000 with green screen, stop motion animation, takes place in the future, and it is absolutely nuts. It's going to be a hard one to find because it actually comes out. I have the Region 2 copy. The Region 1 copy comes out, I think, April. But it is one of the most ridiculous film. It's very Canadian. It's very Canadian because they do reference Kraft Dinner, and they make fun of themselves throughout the entire thing. But to sum it up real quickly, it's about this soldier who's brought back to life as a cyborg. It's very 80s, and
That's awesome.
it is. I'm in love with these guys. They basically remind me of myself as a kid going to Mr. Movies and taking advantage of the 7 movies for $7 deal for 7 days, where you just rent as much crap as you could. So like all the different Time Cops and The Faces of Death and the original Trick or Treat with Ozzy Osbourne and Gene Simmons in it. That level of movie, but it's really campy and fun. It's really fun, and I have not been so entertained by films in a long time. Manborg is what it's called. I also recommend Father's Day by them, which came out last year, which is about a father. He's the Father's Day killer. He's a dad rapist and a cannibal man-eater, which victimizes someone who's usually not victimized. It's usually a woman or a child.
Right.
Now it's an older man who has kids. That is the victim. So, but Manborg is the one I'm pimping tonight. I highly recommend it. And then again, I highly recommend anything by the guys known as Astron 6.
All right. Thank you, Kristian. My pick for this month is going to be Primer, 2004 film made by Shane Carruth, and he stars in it as well, and it's a very low budget film, but it is so well done. Like it totally blew me away. At night and on weekends, 4 men in a suburban garage have built a cottage industry of error checking devices, but they know that there is something more. There is some idea, some mechanism, some accidental side effect that is standing between them and a pure leap of innovation. And so, through trial and error, they are building the device that is missing most. However, 2 of these men find the device and immediately realize that it is too valuable to market. The limit of their trust in each other is strained when they are faced with the question, if you always want what you can't have, what do you want when you can have anything? So I highly recommend that. It is somewhat kind of time travel-ish, if you will. And so check it out. Manborg. I got to check out Manborg. I can't believe Mannequin was brought up as well. That's great. So, just real quick, I wanted to share something with before we announce who the winner is here. 2005, young Mike is taking his then-time girlfriend to go see the new Bruce Willis flick, and Monty Python alum director Terry Gilliam go see 12 Monkeys. We're driving back. It's sleeting and somewhat raining out. And Mike has essentially been mind raped by 12 monkeys. And he and his girlfriend drive right through a red light, spin out in the intersection, and just keep on going after he realizes what happened. That movie totally just blew me away. It's been one of my favorite films for a very long time. I mean, it just totally wrecked my stuff. So this was not as close as I thought it was going to be because I love Looper a lot. Thank you, Sam. Or is that Tom playing your CD? So Looper really kind of blew me away when I first watched it, thanks to Gabe loaning me the Blu-ray. But here we go. I'll poke the monkey.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Your winner by decision is 12 Monkeys!
Yeah, see.
Whoa!
Yeah, that was a lot more lopsided than I expected.
Yeah, that was pretty surprising for me. But I mean, every time that I think the films are going to be close, it's a blowout. Anytime I think it's going to be a blowout, they're really close. So I can never tell. So let's move on to where people can find you, where they can stalk you on the Webernets, or where they can just get a hold of you and ask you for either Sam's CD of humming the 12 Monkeys theme, or the availability of Tom's kids to come over and blow your house up when they get mad. Let's start off. We'll start with Gabe.
You can find me on Facebook, Gabriel Rowald on Facebook. I don't post a lot. I have a Twitter account for our 48-hour team, but I don't use that a lot either. I'm not really a genius with social media at this point, but look me up on Facebook if you're interested.
All right, Tom.
People can find me on Vimeo and YouTube, and not YouTube, Vimeo and Facebook. And oh man, I'm sorry. You know what? I was actually looking up the music from 12 Monkeys, and I found out that Paul Buckmaster did not actually write it. It was actually someone else named Astor Piazzolla that wrote it, and it was something that they pulled for the movie. So
you sit on a throne of lies.
No, I am 100% serious. Sorry. So, Paul Buckmaster, all apologies to you. Congratulations on winning the Grammy for Drops of Jupiter by Train, but you did not write the theme to 12 Monkeys, you big fraud. What are we doing? My pick?
No.
Hey, yeah, Vimeo, Facebook, Tom Haggis, look for me if you really want to, but I wouldn't if I were you.
Someone please call the paramedics. Tom has had a stroke. Sam.
My heart just jumped out of my chest and it's going up the stairs. Bye.
You can find me on Facebook quipping about such things as South Park, aliens, and all things googly eyes. And then, of course, if you want to know more about what I'm doing this summer, then it's got to be the 48-Hour Film Project, which returns to Des Moines for its 9th season. Find out everything about the 48-Hour Film Project at 48hourfilm.com/Des Moines, and you can find my email address there as well.
All right. And Kristian.
If you can go to my company's website, modernamericancinema.com, and learn about the films we distribute to art houses, rural town theaters, and student-run cinemas. Or you can find me on Facebook. I post a lot of random things that usually have nothing to do with anything that's business related. Although as of late, I have been doing some stuff that's business related on there, so that's kind of a lie. But yeah, Facebook. I am on the Twitter. I do tweet quite a bit. So all those places you can find me. I am all over the internets.
All right. Thank you, Kristian. Thanks for being on with us. This was fun.
No, this was fun. Yeah, this was way fun.
All right. Well, Gabe, Tom, Sam, and I would appreciate it if you could leave us a review on iTunes or whatever podcasting catching service you use. You can contact us at cinesmack@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Just search Cinesmack. And, real quick, Tom, what about the contest?
We have another contest on Facebook. If anybody wants to enter, there are 9 movie posters that we're putting up, little squares from them, and you guess which movies they are. They're all time travel movies. That's the big link between all of them. And
we just lost Tom.
So you can send in your guesses to cinesmack@gmail.com or Facebook, and you'll get entered too to win a copy of 12 Monkeys or Looper on Blu-ray.
Ooh, can I enter? I need I need Looper on Blu-ray.
In all honesty, yes, you can enter. Please do.
I'll edit that out.
All right, good deal. No, keep it in. It's cool. It's cool. We're good.
For our April bout, we bend genres as the Magnificent Seven shoots it out with the Seven Samurai. This is going to be great. I am looking forward to this. So for Gabe, Sam, Tom, Kristian, and myself, thanks for listening, and go catch a flick.
Oh, I love time travel movies.
Can we get a little bit of Harvey doing the 12 Monkeys thing?
Doo-doo, doo-doo, doo-doo. David.
This has been a test of the Southsider Studios podcast system. This was only a test. If this were a true lack of entertainment, your head would explode. Go to iTunes and subscribe to our feed. Just search Southsider Studios.